What's going on, guys? JPS back for another video, and today we're going to be watching Even Small Towns Are Great Here, 5 years in the Netherlands. So we have another Dutch reaction. It's been quite some time. I think the last Dutch reaction I did was reacting to the Dutch on New Year's Eve and their fireworks. So if you're watching this, congratulations on surviving the fireworks. I hope you all had great celebrations and nobody you know got hurt. And yeah, we're going to get into this small towns in the Netherlands. I'm excited for this, and hopefully this will bring me back to my own travels throughout the Netherlands this past summer. So let's get right into it, guys.
We've lived in the Netherlands for 5 years now, and during that time we've been to many different cities and towns. Now, obviously I talk about Amsterdam a lot on this channel because that's the city I live in, but I routinely show clips from other places that I've been to in the country. A lot of the time, I didn't go to these places specifically to film them. They were just some of the places I had to go because I was going to an appointment or visiting friends or just living my life. And while I grabbed a few video clips here and there, I never collected enough footage to make a complete video about any of these places, especially in the early days. But a lot of these places are really interesting, and I think you'll find them interesting too, because one of the things that really honestly just blew me away after moving to the Netherlands is just how good things are pretty much everywhere. When we got to the Netherlands, we tried to get out of the city as much as possible to get to know our new country. Before I had a YouTube channel, I used to take photos or videos of things I found interesting, and it's really funny to look back on a lot of what I thought was worth filming. Most of these videos are too short as they were never meant to be posted to YouTube, so you'll have to excuse me if I have to loop some of them. So anyway, let's begin. We have visited the city of Harlem several times, both before moving to the Netherlands and after, as it's an easy trip from Amsterdam by train.
I'm sorry for already pausing, guys. Yes, it's a 10-minute train ride. Harlem was one of the first places I visited when I got to the Netherlands, and I absolutely loved it. It was just so much better than Amsterdam to me because, especially where I was in Amsterdam, I was just stuck in the touristy parts, and I feel like Harlem was more of what the Netherlands is about. And it had everything I needed there. There was a lot to do, had a lot to offer, great restaurants and coffee shops and cafes. I learned the difference from you guys in that comment section when I said that one day. But yeah, Harlem, it's the place to be.
Visiting Harlem for the first time was a really eye-opening experience for me, as it was the first time I realized that even a city of about 160,000 people could be really active and lively, and I talked about that in the very first video on this channel. My hometown has over 3 times the population, and you'd need a 50-car pileup to see this many people outside of their cars at one time.
Bro, and I was literally right here at this town square in front of here, guys. It's just, I'm sorry, it feels so weird to have been here. Wow.
This is entirely because of the design of Harlem and its pedestrianized city center. I took our kids to Leiden to visit the Natural History Museum, again, trivially easy to access by train and a short walk. This is literally the only video I took of Leiden, this crosswalk. This amazed me because it was such a safe crossing, where the street was narrowed with this big pedestrian island. Oh, okay, I was clearly easily impressed in those early days, but seriously, this would not exist in any city this size in Canada, and that's really sad, right? I did a similar thing in the town of Harlingen, where the only video I took was this one. Again, of a safe crosswalk. In this case, the crossing is raised to slow down drivers. If you live in Canada, you have to get all your neighbors together and fight for years to get something like this installed, but in the Netherlands, they're just all over the place and usually installed by default. For a while, we were attending some speed cubing competitions. This meant that we had to travel to some very random places in the Netherlands. This is Lent, which is basically a suburb of Nijmegen. We hadn't been in the Netherlands for long at this point, so everything was new to us. I remember it being so amazing that we could so easily take a train to the other side of the country, and when we got there, it was safe for our whole family, including our kids, to cycle by themselves to the neighboring town. There was also this separated bicycle path that I remember thinking was really high quality, especially in such a small city. This bridge was really cool too, and it was interesting how they cut through this old tower to build this bicycle path.
That's awesome.
I remember thinking that only the Netherlands would care enough about bicycle infrastructure to do this. The other fascinating thing about Lent was that it felt very suburban with lots of single-family homes, but it was still perfectly safe to cycle through, and there were so many families out on bicycles. These kind of suburban streets cut off to through traffic by cars are ideal routes for cycling without having to build any dedicated cycling infrastructure at all. There are no bike lanes needed here because the speed and volume of cars was so low. Suburban streets lined with single-family homes but still safe for cycling just absolutely blew our minds.
Wow. This is a great video. I love how he's popping around to all these places and using that old footage for this. Like, that's a great idea to do that. And also, like, this video just highlights how amazing the Netherlands really is, because you can go all around the country to all these random places, these small towns, and it's still just as high quality as the big cities. And the infrastructure is really nice, and the people are really nice. Like, no matter where you go, what else can you say? Like, that has to speak volumes about a country and its people. So, but I'm like, this is just opening my eyes too, because every place he's showing just, it looks perfect almost. It's crazy.
Speed cubing competition was in Ermelo. Again, our destination in this small town was easily accessible by train plus bicycle. What amazed me was that a town this small, 27,000 people, would have so many trains going to it, and with a ridiculous amount of bicycles parked out front. The other thing that surprised me was the traffic calming. That's the infrastructure that's used to slow and restrict car traffic. So many streets were cut off to car traffic, and again, it was easy to cycle everywhere without any dedicated cycling infrastructure. I talked about this in one of my very early videos about traffic calming on this channel. This one little town had more traffic calming measures than I've seen in literally any city of any size in Canada. And when it comes to small towns in Canada, they're all extremely car-centric. They are legitimately terrible places to be, despite them being small enough to easily cycle from one end to the other. So being in a small town that wasn't lined with strip malls and overrun by cars was just incredible. It really became clear to me that to make a place friendly for cycling, it was more important to restrict cars than it was to build a bunch of expensive bicycle infrastructure. After all, protected bike lanes are really just an extension of car infrastructure, right? You don't need bike paths if you don't have a lot of cars. We also attended a speed cubing competition in Veenendaal.
To that point, the United States is just so car-centric, and when you do go to small towns and it's strip malls and everyone has a car parked instead of bike parked, like, I've always thought about this, but cars do remove that human existence out of people. Like, when you're driving around and people have window tint you can't even see in, you just feel so like distant from humans. Like, it doesn't even feel right. But when everyone's biking around, like, you see people's faces, you can, it's just it's a better way to live. It's such a better way to live, guys. And this guy's from Canada. There are a lot of crossovers and similarities that I can draw from being in the United States. Just a completely different world in the Netherlands, guys.
This town deserves its own video someday, as it's often considered to be the best city for cycling in the Netherlands. The exit to the train station is right at this nice cycling path, and it connects directly to this pedestrianized shopping center. Totally accessible by foot or by bicycle, without ever interacting with any cars at all. And this isn't even the main train station. This is the Suburban station in a place with only 65,000 people. Like, I would absolutely never see this in Canada anywhere, never mind the suburbs of a small city.
Yeah.
We took a vacation to Terschelling, an island in the North Sea. I was amazed that we could take a train directly to the ferry, and when we got to the island, we could rent e-bikes and cycle everywhere. We were even staying on a farm, like an actual rural farm, and it was still easily accessible by separated paths that were only used by bicycles and tractors. This country never ceases to amaze me. We went on vacation.
That's literally on an island too. This guy has been all over the Netherlands, but that is insane.
To a small camping area outside of Ulmen. Again, small town, 18,000 people. Obviously, a lot of people drive here, but there are still alternatives for walking and cycling. I drove around to take a look at the town and saw traffic calming everywhere. Look at the traffic calming on this main residential street. There is no way this would exist in a town this small in North America. This street would be wide and straight, high speed, and have lots of cars. People would have signs on their lawns telling drivers to slow down, and nobody would let their kids out in the street. It's just a totally different way to design a residential area. I was also surprised at how good the new road infrastructure was. You can see a very clear separation between streets and roads. There are no stroads here. For example, the businesses in this industrial area were accessible by streets separated from the main road, and accessible by roundabout. I talked about this in more detail in my video about stroads. Of course, there was a train station with a huge amount of bicycles outside of it. Again, this would just never exist in North America in a town this size. We also stayed at a campground near Diepenheim, and I had to drive there to buy groceries. I think this place surprised me the most because less than 3,000 people live here, and yet there were lovely houses on small streets, traffic calming of course, and people of all ages cycling everywhere. What was even crazier was the time we ended up in Utrecht. There was nice traffic calming everywhere, we saw lots of people cycling, but I really wanted to film this because it's a great example of rural transit in the Netherlands. A bus stop with a bicycle rack so that people can cycle to the bus stop. And this bus stop has buses that come every 12 minutes. And get this, for a village of 265 people.
Bro, like he just... You can literally see cows in the background of a bus stop. That does not look real. I'm sorry, guys. When you see cows in the United States, you're driving on a highway. They're every 12 minutes. Oh my God. It must be a stop along a much bigger route in order to get any people on that bus. But like, that is just mind-boggling. It really is. It's amazing. It's so amazing.
I know of cities 1,000 times that size in Canada that have less frequent bus service.
Bro, I know a city with like 1,000,000 times that population with less frequent bus service. No kidding. Buses in the United States are so bad. They're always late. They seldom come. I don't even know what to say here, guys. Wow.
We took our kids to the Bonami Computer Museum in Zwolle. This is on the edge of the city, about 4 kilometers from the train station, but it was still trivially easy and safe to get to by bicycle. The population of Zwolle is about 120,000 people. It was amazing to us how even these places in a random business park at the edge of a small town were still accessible to us with a train plus bicycle combination. I had never seen anything like this before. Also, the computer museum is amazing. You should go if you're nearby. We stayed for a few days at a campground near Assen, so I took a drive into town to check it out. Of course, I was able to easily pick up an Ove Fiets rental bicycle from the bicycle parking garage at the train station. I wanted to come here because David Hembro, a British blogger who runs the blog A View from the Cycle Path, lives in Assen and talks about it a lot. It was again an absolutely lovely small city, and it was really pleasant to walk around. And there were lots of nice residential neighborhoods all over. Of course, the cycling infrastructure was absolutely top-notch, despite it being a city of less than 70,000 people. One of the suburbs of Assen, called Kloosterveen, looked cool on the map, so I decided to cycle out there. Of course, it was always perfectly safe and comfortable, and there were many other people out cycling as well for all kinds of trips. I just couldn't believe how good a small city could be. Kloosterveen itself was also really nice, despite it being a modern development. There was a mix of housing types, including single-family homes, and they were all connected by car-free walking and cycling paths. The crazy-looking circle thing was a pedestrianized center with underground parking and apartments, and all the shops you'd need on a regular basis. This proved to me once again that modern suburban neighborhoods don't have to be car-centric and crappy. I do think that Assen should have a tram line, though. Its public transportation is decent, but it's only buses.
Ooh.
While we were driving back to Amsterdam, we wanted to stop at a grocery store, so we went to this random neighborhood called Vathorst outside of Amersfoort. Again, totally blown away. Look at this place. This is as suburban as it gets, right off the highway, but there was a traffic calming, a nice little shopping area that's within walking distance of houses. I meant to come back to film this, but I never did. But it really shows that good urbanism is everywhere in the Netherlands, even in new developments. It's not just reserved for a handful of old neighborhoods in the biggest cities like it is in Canada. We decided to spend a few days in the town of Woerden because it looked nice. I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but again, it was absolutely...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's repeating a lot because all these places they all have the same characteristics. Easy to bike through, limiting cars, which I learned how important that was when I visited Harlem, and I was like, wow, why am I in the center of this city and it's dead quiet? Can hear a pin drop. And I never experienced that before because in the United States, in city centers, there's tons of cars, there's honking and beeping and the exhaust sounds and everything. And you don't realize how loud that is until you don't hear it. And you have that inner peace.
Wonderful. There were pedestrianized streets all over the city center and lots of people out. There were modern developments that were extremely pleasant, and no giant stroads, no sprawling parking lots, and the train station was really nice too. It had a big outdoor parking lot for bicycles, as well as one indoors, and more on the other side too. And of course, regular train service, despite it being a town of about 50,000 people. Like, coming from Canada, this was crazy. A family friend came to visit us in the Netherlands. She had Dutch heritage, and we went to see some of her extended family. This brought us to Sneek, an absolutely lovely old town of about 35,000 people. They lived in this pretty typical Dutch suburban neighborhood, and it was really nice. The row houses were well kept, the streets were safe and narrow, and there were lots of things within easy walking and cycling distance. Of course, there was this nice little train station with a ridiculous number of bicycles parked out front. The city center of Sneek is pedestrianized, and it's a genuinely wonderful place to be. We went out on a boat and sailed through the canals.
Wow, that looks beautiful.
Wonderful place to be.
That shot right there, look at that, guys. And you can go through this little canal tunnel. I just love the Netherlands. There's so much beautiful architecture. Like, what even is that?
We went out on a boat and sailed through the canals. I just couldn't believe that a small town could be this nice. As a point of reference, this is what downtown looks like in a similarly sized city in Canada, and I always assumed that this is what all small towns were like. I could never have imagined that a small town could have a pedestrian...
Dude, that literally looks like apocalyptic. Bro. This is how small towns in the United States look too. There's not a single person. Okay, there's like a couple people walking. Just because it's Canada though. Oh my. This just makes me sad. How could you not be sad comparing these two places?
All small towns were like. I could never have imagined that a small town could have a pedestrianized city center before coming to the Netherlands. And yet, they're everywhere here. We also visited her extended family in Alkmaar, a city with a population of about 100.
Bro, been to Alkmaar as well. Up northern Netherlands. Yes, guys. I went there to stay for a music festival, which was outside the city, but they had shuttle buses that took us from Alkmaar. So I was there for a couple nights. And yeah, like I loved Alkmaar too. It's definitely a smaller town or city. I don't know which it is, but I was very much impressed with it. I didn't have any expectations because I was like, oh, this is kind of out of the way. You know, it's not really close to anything else, but you're never far from anything in the Netherlands, to be fair. Like, it wasn't that far of a train ride from Amsterdam, but Alkmaar was really nice.
100,000 people, and I were extended family in Alkmaar, a city with a population of about 100,000 people, and I was absolutely
It's a
amazed.
city for sure.
This was a neighborhood of single-family homes in a relatively small city, and yet it didn't have massively wide streets with high-speed cars. It was quiet and boring, just like a suburb is supposed to be, but it was also perfectly safe to walk and cycle. And it was directly connected to a local park with a network of separated bicycle paths that could take you anywhere else within the city. We saw so many kids out playing together and without any parents around. This is just a better way to design a suburb. I was doing a contract in the town of Zeist, so I had to travel there every week. I'm going to make a full video about this because it was the nicest modern train station I think I've ever seen.
Damn.
Like, this is ridiculous, right? A town of 65,000 people in Canada wouldn't even have a train station anymore, never mind one that looked like this. This is just a small sample of the places we went to in our first few years in the Netherlands. There are many other places that we've been to, and I've talked about many of them on this channel already. I have another YouTube channel where I live stream my bicycle rides, and these live streams show a totally unfiltered view of what it's like to cycle in the Netherlands. I started doing these rides because I wanted people to see what it's really like here in between the places I choose to film. And it's nice pretty much everywhere. And that's really what I want to make clear to people. Because what really struck me about going to all these random places, from industrial parks to suburban neighborhoods to small towns, was that none of them were bad. Sure, some places were better than others, and there are certainly lots of places that could benefit from better public transit. But I have yet to see any place in any city, town, or village in the Netherlands where I felt uncomfortable or unsafe to be outside of a car. And yet, when I think back to my time in Canada, I would go to places that I would call bad on a regular basis. And any time I had to leave my neighborhood without driving, I just expected to feel unsafe several times. And literally any time I had to go to a location in a suburb or a small town, I absolutely had to drive. And I was surrounded by garbage like this most of the time. What's funny is that after a few years of living in the Netherlands, my idea of bad has shifted. For example, I absolutely hate Zeilstraat in Amsterdam, and I avoid it whenever possible. But in Canada, this would be considered one of the good places. This is what motivates me to keep making videos on this channel. I want people to understand that I'm not just seeking out the best parts of the Netherlands to highlight while ignoring the bad parts. There are no bad parts. Or if there are, they're so few and far between that I haven't seen them. A great example is my video about this business park by the airport. I just could not believe that a business park by the airport could be easily transit accessible, safe for walking and cycling, and even nice looking. Or this random business park in Amsterdam with a beautiful two-way bicycle path running right through the middle of it. I spent huge parts of my life going to business parks in multiple US.
In the United States, yes, business parks are no man's land. It's just not, it's never good. Never.
In Canadian cities. They all sucked. All of them.
Yes.
Without exception.
Yes.
I always assumed that's just what they were like, and yet apparently they don't have to be. And the same goes for small towns. I hated small towns in Canada. They always looked like garbage with giant parking lots and a high-speed strode running right through the center of town. And yet here, the small towns were lovely and they were usually easily accessible by public transit. And they almost always had some kind of pedestrianized area. 5 years of living in the Netherlands has changed me.
Look at this. Guys, come on. How do you even beat that? Oh my
forever.
God.
I can absolutely never go back to the life I had before. And the other great thing about living here for 5 years is that I'm allowed to apply for a Dutch passport, which is great because after traveling the world, I finally found the place I want to live, and I have absolutely no intention of ever going back. I'd like to thank my supporters on Nebula and Patreon.
Okay. Great video, guys. Not Just Bikes is the channel. Make sure you guys give him a subscription. This guy, he makes amazing videos. And someone who has traveled all around the Netherlands, he showed us all these different places he's been and still doesn't feel like there's anywhere bad. That's amazing in itself because, like he was saying about the United States and Canada, yeah, there are places you will go or be on a daily basis that are bad. You see them all the time. It's actually very difficult to avoid places that are bad. And by bad, I mean not enjoyable to be in. Cars everywhere, crappy roads, dodging potholes, no humans in sight. That happens all the time. Just it's inevitable being in this country. So this was a great video highlighting the beauty of the Netherlands, the public transportation infrastructure, the people, and just the way that life looks over there. Makes me feel very jealous sometimes, I have to say. So thank you all so much for watching, and I appreciate all you for sticking with me, and I'll be having some more Dutch reactions coming very soon. So I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.